What's up, everybody? Cinephile Mike here, and I have the honor to be sitting down and talking with Nate DeYoung and Erin DeWitt, the two editors on the film Our Hero Balthazar, which just had its premiere at Tribeca Film Festival. Nate, Erin, how you doing today?
Great. Hi.
Doing good. Yeah, the premiere was a lot of fun. It was really fun to see your movie with other people. I feel like you spend so much time watching it and like thinking about it that like actually getting like reactions from people from what you've done is like really satisfying.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So before we get into Balthazar, I always love to ask, how did you both get into, film editing as a pathway, and what excites you about being an editor?
Um, well, I think I started like cutting little stuff for friends on like Windows Movie Maker. I think that was kind of my first, but then got more serious when my friend wanted to move to New York, and I was like, what do I want to? I think editing might be good, and it turns out it's good for my brain, and I've met wonderful people. I think that was my way in.
Yeah, and I also learned in high school and made really dumb small videos and then convinced my parents to let me go to film school. And when I was in film school, what I realized is that literally everyone I met at film school wanted to be a director, but no one wanted to edit. So I got a lot of opportunities really quickly to hone my craft when I was there. I think it's a certain type of person that likes to problem solve in the way that you have to with editing, and also like you're constantly trying to, work things out with other people. So you have to be kind of a people person, kind of someone who's like self-reflective enough to understand what like small little facial tics will do and what they mean to other people.
So you both have worked previously with the writer director of Our Hero Balthazar. You worked with Oscar Boyce on Six Sides of Katharine Hepburn. So how did you come together to work on this piece, and how did you approach this differently? Because that was a documentary short, and now you were moving into a feature. So how did that come together?
Well, I've known Oscar for a very long time. As in, he was one of the people that wanted to be a director in college. And that's when I first met him. And we have worked together for like more than a decade. And that's amazing that you actually know the Six Sides of Katharine Hepburn, but we've worked on a lot of like video essays, like short docs, branded docs about like the art market, about fashion was the Katharine Hepburn, and then like other just various things. Like Oscar is very resourceful, and he has an amazing knack for finding new projects that are seem kind of insane at first, and then when you actually start to sit down and work through them, they're a lot of fun. And that's also how I know Erin. Yeah, she's worked with us on a lot of those projects.
Yeah, I was so lucky I was working as an AE on Good Time, which Oscar was producing, and then ended up in his office one day. And then I think Wayfarers was the first thing I helped out with, a little video essay about that, sunglasses, and then it just kind of took off, and I was so grateful I had so much room to like learn and with Nate and Oscar, and I just am forever grateful. So it's so exciting to be able to work on the feature with them.
And so how did the two of you, because this is the first time you co-edited the one project together. So what was your collaborative process like? How was your communication? How did you two work together?
Yeah, we did like little stand-up meetings and talked about stuff, and then we're working on we like divide and conquer. We were like actually editing while the movie was shooting. So that was an interesting process, right? Like um taking in stuff, and it was the New York stuff was last actually, so it was getting into to like Texas first, which was so getting to know Solomon and then getting to know their dynamic between Balthazar and Solomon kind of first, and yeah, we'd talk through stuff and try things out, I think. um
Yeah, I
Nate.
think having two of us was really helpful to For this project especially, I think it was trying to throw everything at the wall and then seeing what worked and what didn't work. As you could probably imagine, there were a lot of scenes that didn't make it along the way, and there's a lot of things that like we had to fine tune to make sure that the tone was right. Just because, it's maybe one of the more bonkers premises that I can think of for a movie. So trying to make sure that even like getting plot points together and tone right, it was an undertaking, especially yeah, as we were working on it while they were shooting. Like we started essentially in what, the third or maybe halfway through the movie mark, and edited all of that and then came back to be like, and here is how the premise starts for the movie. And it was kind of like a lot to try to digest how to set that up for each character.
So it's funny. I'm not sure where the two of you based, but it's almost like you're reading over my shoulder because that was literally my next question. That this film has these two very distinct settings, right? We have these upper scale New York apartments, and then we have these more, lower middle class Texas settings. And this film does have these drastic tonal shifts and setting shifts. So, what was some of the more compelling and exciting parts about working with that, and what were some of the challenges that you encountered trying to, accomplish that?
I mean, I do really remember one moment. Erin was kind of more, she was the avant-garde, the pioneer going forward, prepping stuff and
Mm.
cutting early assemblies of scenes. And she was already working in New York, and I was trying to finish all of Texas. And it was just like such a whiplash to like watch the scene that I watched, and it was like, wait, this is the same movie? What are we? How are we gonna like make these two things come together? Because it was like completely different actors, completely different tone, and obviously the setting was very different. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure how like solving that meant you pretty much just like revising and revising and revising and hoping at some point it felt like it made sense together. Because I think like if we just cut it just naturally the first time, it was a lot of like, wait a second, what just happened right there? It's like, how are we gonna go from like whatever 2,000 miles away, like this one like dramatic moment to then just being like completely different tonally. But yeah, I'm sorry, that's not really answering that much. I think it was mostly that it just was a very big process, and having two editors was really helpful to like not just like to talk through it like as we were assembling it, and also to have like two of us to like bounce off of Oscar and the other producer and writer Ricky, so that we'd constantly be able to like try things out and adjust things here or there, or kill off like scenes, but like bring back the dialogue and put that in the mouth of a character in a different scene. And it's like there's a whole bunch of like really, really off the wall ideas that I think hopefully you don't even notice that kind of thing when you watch it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other thing too is the time jump. I think that was such an interesting thing to see that if that was going to work. And it was for a while we were really wondering, and I think it does work, but it was a question for a while. Because you do go back in time a little bit.
Yeah. And unless we don't want to spoil too much for people that don't, maybe see this before they get to see the film, and you said there was a lot of stuff that did get left on the cutting room floor, which is always the hardest part, I would assume for you guys with the director, like, we gotta anything that like that was ultimately left out that you wish you could have kept in. I don't know if that I mean that might spoil things or maybe not. I don't know.
I mean, I would say that, and Aaron, I think, is probably going to agree with me pretty handily, but like everything. So this is my first feature, and I always had this like vision of like an editor being the ruthless, like whatever, the tablets with Moses, like actually what you shot wasn't that good in the scene. We should just cut it. We don't need it. And I think it was actually weirdly inverted that Oscar and Ricky were very happy to cut out as much as humanly possible, to make sure that the movie moved as quickly as possible. And it was Aaron and I being like, but we need this character moment, like over and over and over again. And sometimes we won, but I think most of the time it was that what makes the movie work so well, I think, is it's happening so relentlessly fast that it's kind of hard to keep up with it. Like the ways that it keeps being like unexpected turns, to do a spoiler-free version of this.
Yeah.
That uh, I think for both of us, I think both of us had more like wanted to explore the characters and their backgrounds, and I think it was kind of nice to have two writers that had thought about it so much that they knew exactly what they really didn't need anymore because they had written
Mhm.
through it so many times, and that was really, really big blessing to have for us. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, definitely. I think exactly that. It was like we were able to get to know them and then we had to like yeah, let go of like there was a scene where Jaden's walking through a hallway, sees or Balthazar, sorry, Aiden or Eleanor is making a sign in a classroom and it's just this nice little quick thing, but it's like we got that in other places. We don't need that. It's kind of like letting those little things go and then yeah. So had to kill the darlings on this one. But I think I think it with the pacing, it just it I'm glad we did. But
Yeah. No, I definitely get that. So, with everything that you had to, leave on the floor and the stuff that made it in, was there a particular scene or sequence that you were like really proud of in the finished product?
Hmm.
It is funny that I feel like we should know that immediately. So it's kind of weird that we're thinking about it. But I do think there are a lot of scenes that I'm proud of that I think are spoiler scenes. So it's like hard to think about
You know,
um, a good one that isn't too far into the movie. But I mean, I think one of the scenes that changed the least is when Solomon and Balthazar are shooting in the gun range for the first time. I thought like if I think about the scenes that we changed the least, I think that might be the one that stayed the same from almost the very beginning, which is kind of crazy to think about the homoerotic shooting gun scene.
yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Aaron?
I think and my head kind of goes towards the when Solomon goes he's trying to learn how to cry, I think is one that I always
Yeah, in the parking lot.
in the parking lot, yeah.
And
I
that
think
scene, oh, we almost lost that scene. We had to
I
argue for that scene
know.
for a
I
long time, which is
know.
like,
Oh,
it's funny to
wow.
think about. That's how the amount that Ricky and
Yeah.
Oscar were very open to just being like, so what happens if we don't have that? And we just start with like him walking into the pump and go, like,
It
and
was
I mean,
so necessary. It was
yeah,
so needed.
I think for both of us, we love that scene, but it's like it is really cool to have that kind of argument,
Yeah.
or at least trying to interrogate why every scene is there, and like and not being too worried about like losing stuff if it actually makes the movie feel better. And
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of that stuff is like obviously intuition, but I think sometimes it's really surprising sometimes when you just pull stuff out and it's actually more compelling to just, have it be so jarring that it could work really well.
Yeah. Now, part of the working with this film, I know there was some specific either new or new to you Adobe specific Adobe tools that you were using to craft the finished product. So which were those tools that you were using and how was the experience working with them to finish the product?
Well, we
I'm
used Adobe Premiere with productions, and that was like the big thing that it lets multiple editors work in the same kind of project at the same time. And that's been kind of a game changer. I know Aaron and I spent almost a decade trying to just pass back and forth Adobe Premiere projects, and it just getting very ugly and almost impossible to keep track of things. So that's a huge a game changer, I would say, for the Adobe Creative Suite. But yeah, I mean, I've always loved Adobe Premiere because I can just bounce into After Effects and do stuff where they shot a lot of screens during the shoot, and as we were revising stuff and changing the script along the way in the edit, I would have to like VFX the screen to make it say the right things or update it to make it like help the story. And I think it's such a like contemporary story where like so much of it happens on phones and computer screens that it was really helpful to just bounce to After Effects and render something out and make it look like good enough to not be like thrown by it, to know if it was going to work in the final movie.
Yeah, 100%. That was so nice to have, just be able to like live with that and not attempt. And then the way that you would like you would like mesh like two takes together sometime, that was amazing. Like we didn't have that in the footage. Oh, we can actually create it. And that was just such a big, I think I was amazed, and I really um loved that we had that freedom.
Yeah, especially with like how the cameraman, like the camera work is like so like jumpy, and the way that you can track that in is always like pretty amazing how it sells it almost immediately that you can do two different takes.
So one thing that I love to do when I have opportunities to talk, and maybe this is my background as an educator, sharing advice, and I believe we're a sharing community. What advice would you give to, aspiring film editors that are interested in getting involved in working on projects like this or other ones? What advice would you offer to the up and comers?
I would say um take one of your favorite movies and recut a scene, or try and like um yeah, get your hands on some footage and play with it. Or even if you have to shoot something in your backyard, like just try, just start. I think that's maybe the hardest, or that was like the hardest thing for me too, I think, is being like giving myself permission to start. So I would say learn by doing, and asking questions, and that would be I think that would be my advice.
I think with like we worked on so many video essays and have done so much with trying to recontextualize real movies and trying to talk through them that I feel like I've learned so much about specific editors by staring at like whatever a four shot sequence that like Thelma Schumacher always like hides like the weirdest cuts that seem totally normal because like she understands pacing so well that like you're like, wait a second, that was like a complete breaking of the 180 rule on this shot, but I had no idea ever watching the movie itself. But when I like sat down to put this clip into a video essay and watch it like over and over and over again, it just like wouldn't, I think it's hard to study movies in that way, but if you do it and take a little um take it seriously, I think you can learn so much from just watching things and trying to break down what they're doing.
Very nice. Thank you. And when we look back at this film, when you think about Balthazar as it continues its journey on the film festival circuit, distribution, where, whatever next steps it takes, what impact are you hoping that people take away from the film after they've watched it?
Well, I really hope that people at least have fun for two-thirds of the movie and are able to laugh at it because it is a comedy. I think that sometimes when I've shown the
Or
movie,
comedy?
I always talk about how when I showed the movie to my wife at first, she never laughed throughout the whole movie when we were watching it. And it's just like, what is even going on in this thing? And it's like, there is something really incredible about watching it with other people, and you realize that there are like jokes throughout it if you like you if other people that are watching it realize that it full remind that it's it's both very serious and not, and I think that's probably the hardest thing that we had to work with editing it, is that it can be both things at once, and it's hard to say which one it is throughout, but hopefully someday it will not be on the festival circuit, I think is probably the the shorter answer though for the future of Balthazar. And hopefully someone will want to pick it up and have a movie that is like thought provoking and has a
Yeah.
lot of jokes at the same time.
Yeah, 100%. My mom's a retired teacher, and it's kind of terrifying to be like, I'm glad she was retired. This is just a really, so to go into the absurd in this movie and kind of trust the writing and sort of like go on this journey. I think, yeah, and everything Nate said, I think that's what we're hoping to sort of have a conversation, or have, just there's sort of a release valve that we're hoping to um Yeah, I think Nate, you said it.
Yeah, I mean, when there is like a synopsis of it, it does seem like it is like something you don't want to watch right off the bat, where it's
Yeah.
like cool shooting satire, and then it is like
No.
the downsides of social media, and it's like all these horrible things in one lens. But I think hopefully the idea is interrogating, bigger ideas, but at the same time in not a way that's like preaching
And
to
look,
anyone.
just to wrap it up, I just want to thank you both so much for taking the time to chat with me today, Erin and Nate. It was great. For those folks listening, keep an eye out for our hero Balthazar. Once that comes, I'll make sure to post about it because it is definitely a film that needs to be seen with some incredible performances and nice work. I thoroughly enjoyed the film.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.